this video, we're going to cover the process of setting up the schedule generator tool to create schedules to place on our drawings for the reinforcement that we've modeled within our pier here. So to begin, from the Drawing Production tab of the Concrete workflow, click on the schedule generator icon shown here to open up the schedule generator. Now, there should be a yellow triangle in the corner of your icon, as is seen here on this smaller icon. I actually have a separate icon created to launch intermittent builds that I make. So to begin, we'll start on the bin schedule tab. And the bin schedule tab is where reinforcement will be loaded into and displayed with its bending information. From this tab, after loading reinforcement into the dialog, we can click the Place New Bend Table icon here to generate a table with all of the bending information and everything that's seen within this dialog on it that can then be placed on our sheet. The sole purpose of this dialog is just for our bending tables. If we want custom schedules, then we need to go to the next tab over. And on this tab is where we can create custom schedules and define header information for them. Now, if you don't have a template defined, which is kind of a preset of all the settings that can be defined within the schedule generator, you will see something similar to what I'm seeing here, just one blank column. To begin, we're going to go to this drop box right here and click on it, and it should open up, and you can see all of the available items that can be added to the table. So in this case, maybe we want concrete owner. That would be whatever the bar is assigned to. Maybe we want the bar mark then, and followed by the shape. And what I'm doing here is I'm copying from the drawings a little bit, but adding in that concrete owner to accomplish the purpose of the cap, or the description here in the location field. So we have our mark, bend shape, and for our bar mark we will be utilizing the user marks that were applied. Then we're going to need quantity, so let's go to bar quantity. Then bar length, total bar length, and finally weight, bar weight. There we go. Now after we have that set up, I'm going to be in the model here and just make a selection. I'm going to select all of the elements out there, all the rebar elements, and then within the schedule generator tool, let's go in and click the load selected rebar elements icon. Now whenever it processes through, it might process a little bit slower on your end if you're using an earlier version of the tool, but you should be presented with the dialog pop-up you see here, notifying us of the user bar marks that have been detected on the bars within the selection. All right, we're just going to click on user marks here, and the list should populate with all of our bars. So now I need to fill out my header information for my table. Now I will be varying a little bit from the presentation that is shown on this PDF, just because the version of the schedule generator that is included in Update 4 of ProStructure Connect Edition doesn't have all of the functionality that's present within the next release that will be available in Update 5. In Update 5, what I would likely do to accomplish the location field here is actually create an item type for that text, and then within my schedule generator here, utilizing one of the new fields that will be made available, item type, I can attach that item type to my table, load the bars in, and then manage the text that is attached to those bars from the table. Any edit I make in the table will automatically be synced back to the rebar elements that it is associated with. So for Update 4, what I'm going to do is just utilize my cap here, and if I want, I can actually add in a column that maybe I want to use as just a scratch column. So here, let's say bar size. Bar size isn't needed in this, but I'm going to click and drag this over to the right of bar mark, and maybe I just want to call this my location column for now, just to be able to type text in. It's very simple to type text into this dialog as opposed to editing it whenever it's already on a table on the sheet, where you would have to double click to edit the text. Before I go editing any fields here and adjusting the values to match, I want to sort my reinforcements so that it isn't by bar size. As you see here, we kind of have the cap reinforcement up top, and then our column, and then the footing down below. So I'm going to go to my Options tab here. And on the Options tab, we can customize quantity of settings for our schedules. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to say Group by Concrete Owner. And then if I go back to my custom schedule, now I can see there's my P2 cap, there's my P2 column, there's P2 footing. And I think that should be sufficient enough for my purpose here. So now I'm just going to type in here maybe cap longitudinal, and we can go through this process again as far as we want. But basically, whenever I go to place the schedule, anything I have entered in here is going to be transcribed into the schedule that is placed. So just because it loaded with 11, if I change this value, it'll place with that text instead. Now, if I refresh, it will remove any changes that I've made that haven't been synced back and updated within the model. So if I click refresh here, you'll see it actually switches back to 11, whereas with the concrete owner field, if I wanted to change this to just cap, you'll see all of the fields update within the list here to match. As well as out in the model, the concrete element that these rebar are assigned to has been updated too. Alright, so now that we have our list sorted, what I'm going to do is fill out my header information here. So maybe I want to say conc owner, maybe. And I'm putting an underscore in the middle there. It doesn't show up at the moment. I'm going to highlight this and copy, but whenever I click away, you see there's that underscore. And what that underscore does is it'll create a line break so that this text will be, conc line break owner. And I'm repeating these values so that they merge vertically here. Now, for the remainder of this, I'm going to use what we have over here. So I'm going to call this bar. And I'm actually going to make a change here. I'm just going to change this to conc. An underscore would have created a line break, but I want to come across the top with that reinforcing bar list peer number 2 text. So I'm going to type in here reinforcing bar list peer number 2. Copy, and then just come across. You do have to click twice to where you're actually editing the text to be able to paste. But I'm just going to come across the top here. There we go. And now this will be merged all the way across the top. Then I'll have my concrete bar location, followed by shape, number, length, and weight. Now with all of that input, I'm going to go back to my sheet model. I will make comment of the future release, the next version of the schedule generator tool, which will be included in ProStructure's Connect Edition Update 5, will actually include information like rebar zone, which will knock out a lot of this information for us. The zone data is being pulled from the bars automatically when possible. So for our ties here, these are irregular dispatch ties. Whereas you can see it pulled that zone Z2 there. All of those ties are within Z2. So for the other ones, maybe I can just manually type in here. Additionally, we have rebar label, which again would pull from the 3D bar. The missing elements are manual reinforcement. So here, even for our footing, you see bottom, long way, short way, top, long way, short way. And for our column, vert, zone, and then the label that was applied to it within the modeling dialog for the reinforcement there. I'm going to remove that column out. And with what we had defined here, I'm going to get rid of my location column as well and go to place my table. So I click the place new custom table, and I'm just going to click out here and go in and check on it. Happy with that. I will move this onto the drawing sheet. So I'm just using the MicroStation move command to move that there. Now with that placed, all I need to do, I do see I've got a lot of repetition here. What these are those varied sets reinforcement. So I get an entry for each bar. If I wanted, I could go to my options tab and switch it to first and last bar only. And then we would just get the first length and the last length, first length, last length. I would recommend including the vary code column in that case, just to identify the connection and identity of those varied sets there. But it's not absolutely necessary. So I can now update using just first and last. You'll see the schedule has gotten a lot shorter now. But in that case, maybe I want to go to my bend schedule and place a bending schedule that includes all the bending information for the bars. So I'm going to go ahead and place a new schedule for that. Maybe I place it on a separate sheet. I would prefer it to be up in the corner personally. Actually, it'll fit there. So I'm going to move this over and take that. And I'm going to move this back. And then finally, I just need to place my bending diagrams. So to place my bending diagrams, I can do that from the Schedule Generator tool. The first thing I need to do is go to my cell library. So I'm going to just go up into the search here and type in cell and click on the cell library option there. And then what I need to do is actually attach that bending cell library. So within the workspace, there should be a file named bending.cell. Go ahead and just click on that to attach it. Should just have a bunch of cells with numbers and bending names there. Now that we have that done, I'm just going to dock it on the bottom and unpin it here. I'm going to go back to my Schedule Generator tool, and then I'm going to click the Place Bend Shapes icon shown here. So I click that, and it will activate the tool to begin placing our bend shape. So I'm just going to click, and every click places a bend shape, and we'll keep going through here. S10, and then you see here's a blank shape, right? So the blank SHP here is just placed whenever an unknown is encountered, in this case the RT1. And what this allows us to do is create our own diagram on the drawing here, just to get the job done. So I can double click on that text and change it to RT1, and maybe I want to come over here, Alt left click on that rebar line there to set my symbology settings, and then come up through here and give my shape a sketch. So there, and I'm using the tilde key right above the tab key on the keyboard to switch between arc and straight line segments there. And let's go back and down. All right, and next thing I'm going to do is utilize some of these other diagrams that were placed to acquire some of the items I need to finish this out. So I'm just going to copy these over here and drop them from cells to geometry. And I'll take that A and place it here. I believe that's how we start out. Yes, A, and then B. G goes there. C. E. E. And finally we need our O and R. So O isn't absolutely necessary in this case. Obviously we the overall is B, so let me actually stretch this up a hair so I have more room to work with here. And then I'll steal this O from here. take it to the center, and this, get rid of this one. Mirror it about the middle so that I maintain that offset there, and then I'm going to just stretch this down to however close I need it to go. And then whenever I have both of these in place, I'll highlight all three, mirror, this time make a copy about the mirror about line, make a copy, and then just find the center of this arc and drop it there. And then finally R. So for R, I'm going to switch my level, Alt left click on any of the dimensions here and find that center. I'm just going to create a little plus sign in the middle of that center, indicative of the, actually I'm going to use the first one I place and rotate it 90 degrees, about center. There we go. Maybe I want to increase their weight just a hair. And then finally, I'm just going to use the arrow on the end of this O here and bring it up there and make a copy of it. Rotate this one, and this time I will just use 3 points. Here to, let's say there. And then trim multiple, trim to element. Have worked. And move these down to there. That D. And turn it into a R. Alright, now we have our diagram completed. So at this point, if this was a shape that needed to go into the list, into the database, what you would do is make sure you highlight everything. Come up to your search here and type in cell, define cell origin. And then you're going to want this cell origin to be the top left-hand corner of the diagram. You click once, and then in the cell library, just say create new cell, give it the name of the shape, so RT1, and then if you want, you can type in any description you want. And there we go. So that next time we come through, let's say we just needed to place that Venn diagram, I can come to it on the list here and right-click, place shape diagram, and there we are. All right. So the last thing that we might need to do is place a summary list of the bending. So I'm going to move these over now that we have that shifted. Set them there. And get rid of everything we don't need here. And go to my Options tab. Now for our summary, I'm going to check the box here to enable summaries. And then I just needed to define what I need to summarize by. So in this case, I'm going to get subtotals for concrete elements. In future releases, in the future release of Schedule Generator, you'll be able to summarize the list, the current list in its entirety, as opposed to breaking it out by concrete element. But for this moment, we'll just do a by concrete. And if I had multiple piers that duplicates existed within the model, this checkbox here would summarize it and report values on a by concrete item or unit method. So if there were 1,000 pounds per concrete and there were 3 matching concretes, then the summary would report 1,000 with the quantity being 3, as opposed to just showing 3,000. So with that done, I can click on the Edit Summary Headers if I want and change this information as much as I'd like. Whenever I click Accept, it saves it. But keep in mind that all of this information that you customize on this tab will need to be saved as a template in order to retain your settings. So if I were to close out of this right now, I would lose all of my header information and all the setup that we've already gone through. But if I create this template, so I'm going to do Save Template As, and it'll open up to a predetermined location. It should be within the workspace, but if not, just navigate to a location that you'll be able to remember, perhaps your desktop or wherever, and then type in, let's say, example training. Oops. Sample training. Save. You'll get a notification after hitting the enter key that the template has been saved. Go ahead and click OK, and then you'll see that the active template now shows example training. Now that we have an active template, we can set this as a default template if we want. And what that will do is it'll cause it to be the active template every time we launch the schedule generator. One thing to note is that in the next version of the ProStructures schedule generator, which will be available in update 5 of ProStructures Connect Edition, the default template can be defined as a configuration variable, and if it is defined as a configuration variable, the Set as Default Template button will be disabled permanently until it is removed as a configuration variable. The purpose of this is that we do not want to allow users to override the default if it is defined at a configuration level. Users are still able to create new templates and save new templates and load new templates, but they will not be able to overwrite that configuration variable find template either. So I'm going to go ahead and click Set as Default Template, and after doing that you'll notice that the default template should show example training in my case, or in your case whatever you named your active template. Just to give you an idea here, if I were to load up a different template, you'll see a lot of my checkboxes have changed. If I go to my custom schedule tab, I can see there's all kinds of other information in here now and sorting methods. And then I can go back and load my other template. Example training, open, and everything switches back there. So now that we have our settings here defined, I'm going to go ahead and click Place Summary Table, and it'll activate the Summary Table Placement tool, where I will get the following table here. Now if I wanted to at this point, there's nothing wrong with me coming in and saying insert below and maybe just doing something like this, merge cells. And in future releases what I could do is just enable this summary, and you'll see right down here we have our totals. So let me turn that off and come back. There we go. 16491.02. And this may be something that is included in a future release as well. The total line you see here. All right, and that basically covers all of the settings that we have defined in here. Now, there are some additional settings over in the table display options I'm going to walk through real quick that we didn't necessarily mess with in order to get the tables that we placed. But they include, the first option here will exclude empty bin leg columns from the place bin table. So let me go ahead and click this checkbox here to see which table is my active table. And we can see in here that the F column is unused, J column is unused. So maybe we wanted to save ourselves a little bit of white space. If I go ahead and check this box for exclude empty bin leg columns from place table, and then go and update my bin table, you'll see that those columns are then removed, saving us a little bit of room there. If I wanted to instead exclude the bin leg dimensions entirely from the place table, I could click the next one down, and this is only applying to the binned schedule tables. The next one down will exclude any empty columns from any place table, so that goes for the custom schedule as well as the bin schedule. Let's see here, we do have an empty column there, that pound sign, which would actually be utilized in the case that we had a sub leg, like a B1 or a C1. It would be entered on a new line and there would be a 1 in this field here. But if I go ahead and check this and update my schedule, see it is then removed. Continuing down, we have Group by Concrete Owner. This only applies to the custom schedule. By turning this on, actually we have include straight bars. So by default, straight bars are excluded from bending schedules in practice, just because Their length can be reported as a length, and it does not need elaboration. But in the case that you want to include straight bars within your bend schedule, make sure to check the box for include straight bars there. Now, next up, we have available in the next release of ProStructures Connect Edition, Update 5, you will be able to summarize inline by concrete weight, and you'll be able to edit those subtotal settings. Grouping by concrete owner applies only to the custom schedule. Our first option within that, after turning it on, is to group by the matching concrete name. Now, this would be useful in that maybe you have multiple concrete elements modeled to acquire the reinforcement necessary within a specific single structure. Maybe you only want to view that single structure as a single item. Let's say in our case, maybe I just named everything Pier 2 or something of that nature. Then this would group all of those elements by that matching name, regardless of it being a different concrete element. The next one down does respect the concrete's identity, and what it does is actually builds the concrete, or builds rebar lists by concrete that you have selected. So once it has those lists built, let's say I selected all the bars in the model, it's going to group them all by concrete and then evaluate all of the concrete elements in the selection and see if any duplicates exist. And if so, then they will summarize that, report values for a single one, and provide a concrete quantity value of, one more than it had been previously. Next up, maintain rebar label grouping. What this will do is separate similar bars that exist within different zones. So in the case of our top reinforcement here, in order to apply that 11A2, we had to turn that on because these bars were originally the exact same length as the 11A1s up top. So that just separates out by the zone and identity and placement. Future releases, you will be able to merge matching zones, and all of these are just on the place table presentation options. Let me go and load a sample template here and show you the subtotal settings. So within the subtotal settings, you'll see we have the subtotal cell fill value. If I come up to my fill, what that is it's the index value for the color within the active color table. So here I had 254 selected. If I have that on and I go back to my custom schedule, let's say group by concrete owner, and refresh this list. Use it out here so we can see it. And you'll see the merging of the zones there. The spacing values here have not been merged because they are not associated to the same zone as far as the program is concerned. These are our irregular dispatch bars, but you'll see down here where these zones match, the spacing is grouped. We didn't want it to branch over multiple zones there with the spacing, so that wouldn't have looked well. But you can see there's the fill color of 254, the text subtotal per unit, and then finally our weight, which will be situated beneath the weight column. All right. Additionally, additional tools of the schedule generator, which also exists within manual marking tool, are the locate options. So in the case you're wanting to locate any of the bars that you have within your list, you can just make sure you have the desired toggles turned on. Basically, we have select rebar, highlight rebar, isolate rebar, and fit rebar. Now, in the case of cages like these, like what we have for this beam, if we have the select, isolate, or fit, it will utilize the entire cage just because those individual bars aren't selectable themselves. So I recommend utilizing the highlight rebar option to locate reinforcement within the list in the model. So if I do that, you see it highlights specifically those bars. And that concludes this video. Please let me know if you have any feedback or comments on the schedule generator tool, as I am always looking for new ways to improve and enhance it.